How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks. And you guys looks like you're topping cotton. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, things are going well.
I love that you've been able to kind of carve out. It's like that's not a small thing to carve out a space in the music industry that's really unique. And man, I'm really proud of you. Congratulations.
No, listen, I really appreciate that.
I can't tell you how delighted I am to have learned that you've adopted the Hi-Fi Duet. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and
Uh,
like we've been on a journey trying to find the right pickups for our guitars because as you know, you started off making guitars, and not every pickup fits every guitar. And for us, I
Yeah,
think because it's slightly different materials, not everything in your lineup was suitable for our guitars, and
yeah, for sure.
and I think we had open discussions about that. I love you
Yeah,
guys, but that pickup didn't suit, so we both agreed, no, it's not the right thing.
yeah. We've
Um,
always we've always found that like carbon graphite in general is vastly different than wood. Although you can get using it correctly, you can get fantastic results that maybe are even in some ways better than wood, but still how the sensor interacts with it, it's like boys and girls, it's like they're different. It's like the sensors don't interact with carbon fiber in a exactly analogous way that they do with wood. So I mean, this delights the heck out of me that we finally, I've enjoyed you and been watched your company grow and been so happy to know you over these years. But I was like, doggone it, I wish we could, find a pickup that would like make you happy.
yeah. Well, I think we definitely have it with the Hi-Fi Duet, and because we tried the Hi-Fi, which was good, but the Hi-Fi Duet, I think when you first told me about it at NAM over a year ago, um, yeah, we were excited about it when we got the first one. Like last night, we had a concert in the little cottage that we have here beside our factory, and it's an Irish group called Honor.
Oh
And
wow.
we uh, we handed the Hi-Fi Duet guitar to one of the guys in the band, and he just wanted to try it because he
Uh-huh.
loves his other Emerald that he's got, and he normally plays that every night. And he was like, "No, I'm going to play this all night tonight." He just fell in love with it.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
just yeah. And as he said to me, he said it just sounds like you've got a mic in front of you.
That was the whole task. That was the whole goal that we started way back with, even with the anthem. And actually my very first guitar pickup was a little lapel mic that I stuck down inside the guitar. um, I had gotten like there's certain things when you're growing up that catch your attention. Like when I was young, the two big influences on the things that really captured my imagination when I was young, just starting to work with stuff, was epoxy and girls. It's like those two things blew my mind, and epoxy's magic. They're both magic, but epoxy you can do stuff with. So, and the other thing, as I started my career building guitars, is a pressure zone microphone, which is, the microphone is just in a little tiny gap on a table, and it just reads reflections rather than direct sound. And that was my first pickup that I stuck inside of a guitar when I was building guitars back in LA. And so ever since then, that PZM thing, girls epoxy and PZMs have been kind of like, you know, things that have really fired
Oh,
me up. So uh, this microphone is like kind of in the lineage of that. But we did something different with this one. We actually abandoned the PZM and we turned the microphone capsule into the box itself because we had learned how to control, You know, the inside of a guitar, you know, sounds like crap. It's like, you know, trying to think about trying to mic your voice in the shower,
Mm.
or sticking a trash can over your head and miking your voice. It's similar. So it's a mess in there. So what we had to do was learn. We created an admittance pattern for the microphone that would pretty much minimize or remove all that garbage, which has come from standing waves inside the guitar. And so that was the first task. And then the next task was to isolate the capsule from the guitar. And we had done that in the Anthem mic, but the Anthem mic was, you know, a couple inches long, and there was room for what at the time was good, but now we know it's a little bit of a, compared to the Duet, as a crude shock mount. But we had to, so because of the Hi-Fi, we didn't have room to use the Anthem mic. Otherwise, we probably just simply would have used the Anthem mic. But this forced us. This was one of those occasions where we were forced into coming up with a solution. And it turned out that that bridge plate location was the optimum place to put the mic. So, you know, now we were handcuffed and trying to invent our way out of this thing. And um, one of the biggest issues was to eliminate anything mechanical from the guitar reaching the capsule, because the capsule can act like an accelerometer, pick up its own self. And
Okay.
most of the stuff that mechanically reaches the capsule, you really don't want to hear. So we had this tiny, tiny little space in which we had to make a shock mount. And to make a shock mount, you need mass and a shock absorber. The
Mhm.
mass holds it steady, and the shock absorber allows it to not move when the guitar is moving around it. And so we came up with this little donut of a material that we affectionately call flubber, that is like a trampoline, but it damps. It's got really good damping quality too. So the crazy thing about this, Alistair, is that the prototyping, you know, we've got a couple of great prototyping houses that can do some pretty precision work for us. But we were finding that the way we even gripped the shock mount on both the interior and the exterior of the part, 5 thousandths of an inch of difference would completely change the sound.
Wow.
So we had to, so basically we're making this capsule on, these capsules and the shock mounts are being made on a lathe to a tolerance of plus or minus 1/2 of 1,000th of an inch.
Wow. That's pretty precise.
Yeah, and I mean it had to be, because we were getting response all over the place, and then we were still prototyping our shock mount, and we were still getting different results. So we actually had to commit to production on the shock mount at some value and thickness to get some consistency, so we knew where to take it. So then we were able to modify the mold until we got consistent results. And but it was like you know, it was like balancing on the head of a pin.
Mm.
But we had to um, man, this was really quite a journey, learning about other microphones. And I fully believe, like, the magic microphones out there, like the Neumanns and the Schups, and you know, all the classics. I really do believe that they're like a guitar. It's the sensor is extremely important, but I think it's only and the electronics, but I think it's only about 50% of the sound of the microphone. The other part is mechanical.
Mm. Engineering around it.
yeah, it's just the mechanics of it, the way things vibrate or don't vibrate, or what comes in where and stuff like that. And it really gave me so much appreciation for the other microphones of the world. And so this was a rabbit hole.
Hmm.
But
So
now I want to let, but now I've introduced how squirrely it was to build. I want to reassure you that we have lots of testing that
mhm,
goes into each capsule, and we actually print out a frequency response graph from each microphone, and compare it to our golden child. And we're plus or minus 5% on either side of that, or we don't ship it. And
yeah,
it's proven to be reliable in you know temperature, crazy conditions, guitar drops, whatever. It's a solid piece, but it just took a lot to find the right formula.
yeah. Well, and that's the great thing is that whenever you get it dialed in, that you can keep it dialed into that same recipe every time and get consistent results.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a little bit. Let's just talk about, hi-fi and duet. So
Yes.
explain the hi-fi pickup as a starting point, because it's
Okay. Well, the hi-fi pickup, the innovation of the hi-fi pickup is that it's a bridge plate transducer, which means the sensor sticks on underneath, inside the top, on what maybe in your guitar, or in a traditional wood guitar, was the little strip of wood underneath the bridge called the bridge plate. Those have been around forever, but the big, and they typically sound better than an under saddle pickup, but they're also have been prone to feedback.
yeah,
Um, it's like if you think about a vocal mic versus a choir mic, the vocal mic you can get pretty loud without feedback because it's really close to the source, but it doesn't sound like the band or the choir. So once you get the whole band out there and you move the mics away, it sounds more like the choir or the guitar. But then then there's a problem with feedback. So the innovation of the hi-fi pickup is there. Well, there's two. One, the other popular pickups that were out there for bridge plates, we felt didn't have adequate dynamics to represent the dynamics of the guitar. We felt like they were just too compressed, and so one of our goals was to create a pickup that had great dynamics. And then the other goal was to, it would be worthless if it just fed back like all the other ones. So, I can't say that we did that it was our goal and it was our intention, but how it happened, there was definitely a little bit of luck in there. You make a mistake and you go, oh, I can use this mistake, right?
yeah.
So the feedback resistance of this pickup was a little bit like pulling the sword out of the rock to get the sound of the choir, but have the feedback resistance of the close vocal mic. And
Mhm.
that was really the game changer with this pickup.
So and we experienced that with the first hi-fis that we tried in the guitars, and we liked it. And I guess you must have had this similar experience, but you just thought there was a little bit of something extra that could be added, and then that was adding that silo mic. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because I suppose initially people might think, well, if it's a contact transducer and it's inside on the bridge plate, it should just sound like the inside of the guitar, but it does a very different thing than
Yeah.
what is suspended in there.
Yeah, the bridge plate transducer is reading the vibration or bending of the top. It's not a compression resistor, I mean compression sensor, so it doesn't have that quack of an under saddle pickup, which is mostly compressive, which is where that comes from. So the bridge plate transducer world is wonderful, but the feedback was the big problem. But the microphone is a whole different animal. You know, so we were certainly aware that the quality of the bridge plate, the hi-fi's pickups on their own, was a big step above a traditional undersaddle pickup. But since day one, really, my amplification quest has just been to make a guitar sound like it's mic'd in a studio. Now, that may not always be the appropriate musical tool for a musician on a stage or in a coffee house or in an arena, but that still was what we were, like, we talked earlier about being too stubborn to quit. That's been like, okay, I believed it was possible to make, to create a pickup system that you really could use as a real alternative to a good studio mic when you're recording, and you could sound like that live. So I feel like the Hi-Fi Duet delivers that. And again, that's not always the appropriate musical tool. So we put a mixer on there so you could roll between the pickup and the microphone. So, you could sometimes on some stages, if you put the guitarist in an isolation booth with a microphone in front of them, you'd never hear him in the band. So you can't, that's not always the most useful thing. But in the right situations where you want that and you can use that, that's never been done before. So we're really proud of having accomplished that.
So who do you think this pickup is best suited to? Because we get asked these questions a lot. How do I choose what pickup to use to put on my Emerald? Like, what type of musician do you think, or what style of music is best suited to what the Hi-Fi Duet delivers?
Well, the beautiful thing about the Duet is you get a pretty broad palette, and it's useful across the entire range. So that opens the market considerably for the usefulness of it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for a heavy metal band, but it's not confined to a single singer-songwriter in a wedding or a church or a coffee house. It doesn't have to be that intimate. So I'd say, depending on where you're playing, people are out using these things in arenas now. So depending on where you're playing, you can just dial the mic in to whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about it. Yeah, we see that it will have a lot of versatility for a lot of stuff.
That's the key. That's the key with this system, is that the Anthem was great, but most people just kind of used it about the same. They would the mic in the Anthem was more direct than the mic in the silo mic. So most people with the Anthem would just bring about a third of the mic in, and that was it. And arenas or whatever. And so we're finding with the Duet that people are all over the place, and so they're just whatever the stage allows, or whatever the band and musical system situation allows. It can fit in a pretty broad range of places.
Yeah. And I guess, with modern technology, stages have become a little bit of a safer environment for guitars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had a mind-blowing experience a couple of years ago on a big arena stage at a sound check with an artist that we were working with. And you could hear a pin drop on stage. And it was so stinking loud out in the audience. But the stage was actually really quiet. And so everybody was, you could converse normally on the stage. And, people were using in-ears, and, so, it really has gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. So a question I wanted to ask you. So
sure.
you started off as a guitar maker.
Uh-huh.
Probably a lot of people mightn't have known that before, but probably a lot more people know it now since you've gone back to your roots and designing a guitar
Yeah.
again. So I was curious about how being a guitar maker initially influenced your journey to become a pickup maker.
It, I would say it's foundational. Um, when I was making guitars, I wanted to get better faster at making guitars, but when I started making guitars, there was no material on what makes a guitar sound like a guitar, like a good guitar. So I started studying violin making, and there was a lot. I don't mean by studying violin making, I began making violins, but there was a lot of information about how to tune the plates, the back, and there's all kinds of information about mass and stiffness and those kinds of things with violin makers. And then I found this scientific society that was dedicated to basically reverse engineering Stradivarius. And these were physicists, like PhD physicists and electrical engineers, and just a whole range of scientists that were dedicated to that. And so that was how I learned about the vibrational analysis of the guitar of a violin top, and using a laser to find all those kind of things. And so I set about in a really crude way with a guitar amplifier and a Radio Shack speaker and like an oscilloscope or a signal generator that I found at a Army Navy surplus store to create a sweepable situations where I could actually put pepper or salt on the top or back of a guitar and vibrate the crap out of it and see what the modes were doing.
Mm.
So that was like, ooh, that's a peek under the hood, right? It's not, you're not just driving the car anymore. You're tuning the engine. And so that I spent about 2 years um, really slowing down making guitars and then learning about this information. So I think I was one of the early people in guitar making that was doing this. And then, I'm just so obstinate and pig-headed. I didn't want to make the same guitar either. So I was always experimenting with different bracing, and I adopted carbon fiber pretty early in the process to make braces out of. I'd sandwich it with redwood just to give it some gluing stability, but it was super light and made these very responsive stuff. So, I was just trying to combine things and learn about what made a guitar sound good. But in the process, I learned about modal behavior of the top and the back, and specifically the top. So the knowledge of the modal behavior of the top has allowed us to manipulate the physics of the transducers in a way that really resulted in the hi-fi pickups themselves being so feedback resistant. So it had a, when I built 30 some odd acoustics before I got into pickups. But it had a um, profound influence on my pickup career, because I be just understanding the modal behavior of the instrument that allows you to, it's kind of like pulling the tablecloth out from underneath a place setting, making a good pickup. But you kind of need to know where to pull and how to, you need to know some physics to make that whole thing work. So it's been it's been foundational, and I really think what set our company apart from the other pickup companies.
Yeah, I think you have to have a certain journey under your belt. And it's a certain combination of different experiences that leads you to the direction that you find yourself in and allows you to.
Yeah,
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 yeah, it's really.
yeah,
And now
yeah. There's
it's gone full circle back to guitar. So tell me a little bit about that. And I was so excited whenever you showed me your latest guitar.
Oh, thanks. That's been another journey. Fun, totally fun. Um, when COVID hit and we all started working from home, um, it was the guy's idea for me to start building again, and I was like, "Nah, I really don't want to do that." No, 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 you should build a guitar. And so anyway, I thought, okay. One of the things is, do you remember the Godin Acousticaster, the Telly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I designed that guitar,
Oh.
and that was my first acoustic electric. And that was still based on that acoustic science. As one of the things I learned about a resonance isn't a strength, it's a weakness. And like water will always find the easiest path downhill. String energy does the same thing. Wherever there's a resonance, string energy is going to find an easier path into that resonance. Now that turns into something called acoustic loudness. I mean, but the resonance itself is a weakness. So armed with armed with that knowledge, in that Telecaster guitar, I created this, which basically looked like a kalimba, a bunch of vibrating metal rods inside, glued underneath the bridge plate, that were tuned to dreadnought frequencies, major body frequencies of the dreadnought. And that gave the string energy a place to go.
Hmm.
So, like with the Chet guitar, brilliant, absolutely mind-bogglingly brilliant innovation. One of its weaknesses was it had sustain like a Les Paul. Acoustic guitars don't do that. So having these vibrating rods inside the telly allowed a path to ground, essentially, for string energy that was similar to that of a full body acoustic. So it had a more believable sound and playing feel. So that was my number one. But ever since then, I felt like I'd left some money on the table. Like, it didn't satisfy acoustically, and it sounded a little bit like a banjo when you played it. It was, and because it had the LB6, which sounded pretty much great on anything, even if it sounded a little bit like a banjo acoustically, we could EQ that out, and it sounded good. So my next task was just to learn how to, over the years, I would spend probably a week or two every couple of years in that rabbit hole, trying to figure out why an acoustic electric sounded like a banjo. And everybody would hollow out a mahogany body and put a top on it. And in the trade, we call those nut bowls, because that's the first thing you make in junior high wood shop. They give you a piece of mahogany and a chisel, and you make a nut bowl for your mom. So we call those things nut bowls. So you slap a good acoustic top on a nut bowl, still sounds like a banjo.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I knew how to make a good acoustic top. So I thought, okay, let's make this thing a little bit bigger. So anyway, over the years, I had never really quite figured out what was going on here. I tried a whole bunch of stuff, carbon fiber tops, honeycomb tops, you name it. I was doing it every couple of years. I would just go into building mode and try to solve that problem. So COVID comes along, and I thought, okay, now's time. And so one of the advantages that I had now is that within this little thing, I've got more scientific equipment available to me, vibrational analysis, you name it, than I had when I was building guitars and vibrating tops with a Radio Shack's loudspeaker. And So I had that, and then so I built one. I thought, okay, well, let me just make it a little bigger, like, and I'll make a nut bowl. And one of the things that had always been a little bit of a problem with the telly is that, it's a thin body, and so that it didn't stay in tune as well as I'd liked it. It was a little noodly. So I thought, okay, I'm going to put a big neck support in this thing. So I make a nut bowl and I put this CNC, this neck support down the thing. It basically sounded like a banjo. It was a nice banjo, nicer than I'd done before, but it still didn't, it didn't sound that good. And so I was like, okay, what now? So then I took a triple O and I cut the thing down. I just cut it, I just, it was about that thick. I cut it to where the sides were about this deep, and I strengthened the rim around the inside. I made the rim rigid by gluing more material into it because I knew the rim of the guitar had to be rigid for where I was going. And then I put the back on, and son of a gun, if that thing didn't sound pretty darn, it didn't sound as good as it did before I cut it down, but it sounded pleasant.
Mm.
So it sounded pleasant. So from that, I learned, man, all the while I was making guitars, I really never understood the vibrational role of the back. It was always a black hole to me. It was a mystery. I knew it had I knew it was important, but I didn't know why, and I didn't know how to manipulate it. And mostly I thought it's just holding the neck from caving into the top, because, the neck and on a wood guitar, they're just in shear. And so you take the back off a guitar, if it's strung, the neck just goes, and just falls into the body. So that's mostly what I thought the back was doing. I tried to tune the back at a third relationship to the top just because I felt it was more harmonious, but I never really quite understood the mechanics of the back. Fast forward again to this little triple O that I cut in half. It was a $100 Chinese guitar, by the way. I don't ruin good guitars, like, at least not intentionally. And so, anyway, there we go. It sounded great. So I knew I needed to have a full floating back on this guitar to solve the problem of making it sound decent. So then the next question was how? How on earth am I going to support the neck? If it was bad with a nut bowl, it's going to be really wiggly with a floating back. And because it was thin, I'd probably have to build that back like a tank, which would ruin the whole problem. I mean, which would ruin the whole effect. So that's where we came up with anchoring the neck, that floating neck piece that anchors the neck to the sides inside of the body. So the neck has incredible stability, and the guitar will actually stay in tune without the back on. And so because we took the job of holding the neck from the top and the back and transferred it just to the rim, we were able to tune the top and the back independent of that structural necessity. So we took the structural mandate away from the top and the back, and that allowed us to tune the plates to have a nice, pleasant acoustic sound. And then you put a pickup system on it like the Hi-Fi Duet. The guitar sounds good to begin with. And so then that allowed us to put a faithful pickup system on the instrument, because the instrument actually sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a journey.
That's really cool, and I can appreciate everything that you just said, because yeah, it's funny. Every time I talk to you, I think more and more we have similar ways to think about things. That's exactly how I approach designing our slim body guitar or X10 Slimline. I literally took a full bodied one and cut a section out of the side,
Uh-huh.
cut the back. And I guess the beauty of what we have with carbon is we can create a lot of structure. So we have a lot of stability in our sides and in the neck joint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so then we can get away with making that back thinner and make it resonate and move and sing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's been similar journeys there. But I've such an appreciation for what you've done on.
Oh, thank you, Alistair. Same back at you, man.
It's fun to be able to, I think, come up with ideas that are innovative and then see them play out and see the music and hear the music that people can create on them.
Yeah, yeah. It takes you different places. It's like it's a magic. Basically, we're making magic carpets, right?
Yeah. And people keep asking me, do you not play guitar, Alistair? And I'm a really bad guitar player.
Oh, me too.
And I say I'm not a player. I'm just an enabler. You know,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I love being being the catalyst for people to be able to make certain types of music and do what they do.
Yeah,
And if the guitar that we've made or pickup that you've made inspires somebody to play a little bit different, then essentially we're part of that music.
yeah,
And I love that feeling.
yeah. Me too. That's a really satisfying thing.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I get enough kick out of that I don't need to play for myself.
Ah, because of the pickups and stuff and testing, I play almost every day. But I think I tell people I'm the worst guitar player that's ever had the privilege of playing guitar for a living.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're only playing analytically, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Same for me. Yeah, I never play a song. I just play sounds.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, every once in a while, just by accident, some music will happen, but it's not intentional.
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, this is very cool. Well, Lloyd, I'm delighted we were able to have this call. We're very excited about the Hi-Fi Duet, and I look forward to hearing it right across our range because we haven't put it in all our guitars yet. But I'll be excited to try it in our slimline guitar as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope you'll have similarly good results in yours. I'm pretty sure you will.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. Um,
And I'm likewise excited to hear that you've adopted the instrument because I've admired what you've done. I've been admiring an admirer of yours over the years, and you're just a pioneer out there doing something on the edge, right? And that's really something. So I'm so happy that we've finally made something that can bring the qualities of your instrument to an audience in the way that that they should be, and that enhances really basically just bringing the quality of your instrument to an audience. I'm glad we finally made something that has the forces have coincided to make a happy marriage.
I think so. I think we're there. And
Awesome.
I appreciate you saying that. Now, I've got one last question for you.
Sure.
When are you coming to visit us in Ireland? Because I went
Oh,
and I visited your factory. It's your turn.
oh man, man, oh man. I would so love to. And my wife and I are addicted to the BBC TV. Just
Yeah,
addicted. And a lot of the shows are in Ireland, and we just keep saying, man, we need to go. So thank you for putting that idea in my head again.
well, you're invited, and we'll be able to show you around. It'll be a privilege to be able to take you on a tour around the factory and show you what we've done here.
I would love to see it. I'm sure it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, Lloyd. Well, listen, it's been a privilege, and I look forward to being able to share this video with our audience and yours as well.
Thank you, Alistair. I really appreciate your time and your support, man. I'm such a huge fan of what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.